So if you guys are watching this the day that this video goes live, today is drop day for Breathedivinity. And what we have here, what you guys can see on the left, is actually an old t-shirt, and the t-shirt on the right is the new Twilight's Curse t-shirt from this drop. So we're having two t-shirts, and as you guys can see, the Nightmare colorway has finally been fixed. So the red is a lot more of a vibrant red now, and this t-shirt's going to be dropping in 5 different colorways. So as you guys saw, we have the Nightmare, we have this Midnight colorway, we have a Moonlight Blue, Dusk, which is the purple logo, and then we also do have Smoke. And for reference, I'm 5'9", 172 pounds, and I usually go large or XL. If I want it to be really baggy, I'll go XL. If I just want a normal oversized fit, I'll go large. So with this tee, this is the Nocturne one, and we're dropping it in 4 colorways: Smoke, Darkness, Nightmare, and Void Black. Between the two, I prefer the first one. If you want something a bit more subtle, then go with the second one. And going back to the Twilight's Curse t-shirt, I did get a large in all of them. I have 3 different colorways. We have the Midnight Dusk right over here, which is honestly one of my favorite colorways, and then the Nightmare. The new Nightmare is so nice. Actually, it pops. It actually pops. And then this one, I'm an XL, so you guys can kind of see the difference here. 5'9", 172 pounds. And of course, if you need any sizing recommendations, feel free to drop a comment. This drop should be open all week, so I'm gonna be active. I'll be responding. Just ask me whatever you need. And then these sweatpants are my favorite sweatpants that we have ever dropped. They're the banana shaped cyber uncuffed sweatpants, and the fitment on them are so freaking nice. And then these are actually a different pair of sweatpants. So these are the Archangel blade uncuffed sweats, and the main difference between the two is the fitment. The Archangel ones fit just like normal sweatpants that we've had in the past, and obviously the Archangel ones have a bit of a more prominent and louder design, and they'll be coming in a bit more colorways. But the banana shaped sweatpants are just a nice simple pair of pants. They fit so nice, and the whole justification for the banana in the name is that they have a fitment similar to quote unquote a banana. But I mean, in my eyes, it kind of just reminds me of like a bit of a flared sweatpant. And for both of these sweatpants, I'm wearing large. I believe for Archangel, you have the option of 5 different colorways, and then for the banana pants, there is only the Smoke, which I'm wearing, and then also the Midnight colorway as well. And the highlight of this drop, the exoskeleton compressions, which will be dropping in 14 different colorways. 14. I think that's the most colorways we've ever dropped for a single compression ever. And I managed to get my hands on 6. As you can see here, we got the Eclipse and Silver, and for this drop I went medium and compressions, and the designs on these compressions are insane. There's a back piece, there's a side panel that highlights your obliques, and something to notice as we get into more colors is that there's kind of a difference. When you go into like a Nightmare, you see the red paneling on the back piece, versus when you look at the Eclipse or the Silver, it's kind of just a straight up design. But either way, the back design is definitely the highlight of these compressions. It kind of reminds me of Tokyo Ghoul a bit, especially on the Nightmare colorway. I think that's probably my favorite from this drop. And then there's also a Dusk that I sadly didn't get my hands on. I might have to go when this drop goes live and cop myself one, because purple just always reminds me of Solo Leveling and Jinwoo. So yeah, the Weeb in me is definitely overtaking. And another cool colorway is the Blossom Pink. I just really like the contradiction of being jacked as fuck and wearing a pink compression. I think that's sick as fuck. And then the last and final piece of this drop is the zip up hoodies. We have the stitching on the hood, the paneling on the arms, and then of course we have the sword zipper, which a lot of people ask where I get my necklace from, and I literally ripped off a pendant from one of my zip ups and put it on my chain. So, and this hoodie will be dropping in 6 different colorways, this one being the Eclipse, and then we have Moonlight Blue, Nightmare, Dusk, which is purple, Darkness, and Smoke. And I am wearing a size large here, and these will be dropping tonight. These will be called the Shadow Monarch zip up hoodies. And yeah, 8 p.m. Eastern, be ready for early access. If you want to catch stock, make sure to join the Discord, link will be in the description. And yeah, code J at checkout. You guys enjoy. Okay, so shoulders and arms. Today is honestly probably the simplest day in terms of complexity throughout my whole split. I do 2 exercises per muscle group, and I actually filmed this at a gym called Paradise in Miami. Super dope gym. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So beginning off, before I even do anything, of course I do my warm-up sets, but prior I like to stretch my rotator cuff. I get a little bit of tricep action with the cable going, single arm tricep extension, and then a single arm cable curl as well. But one thing I've noticed, especially with traveling more recently, is that when you go gym to gym, you notice that equipment tends to feel different at different gyms. So specifically this Smith machine, I was testing it out and it felt a lot lighter than the one back at home. And typically when I do my shoulder press, I either do a Smith or a hammer strength plate loaded machine. A lot of people actually neglect pressing movements for shoulders, but I honestly feel like that is like the major component to building strong delts. On that note, I do believe that shoulder press is a very fatiguing movement, so I only do one set here. You can mess with the volume. Of course, I do a chest and shoulder day earlier in my split, so I'm getting a lot more delt volume earlier in the week, but I'm only doing 3 sets of shoulders on my shoulder and arm day. So in total, when I look at every muscle group, I'm doing 5 to 9 sets per week. And since I'm only doing one set here, I try to take it to 0 RIR, try to go as hard as possible, make sure that this set counts. And then right after that, I go into my favorite tricep movement. If you guys have been following me for a while, you would know that triceps have always been a struggle of mine to grow, and I actually started implementing these overhead tricep extensions, or whatever you want to call them, a few months ago, probably about 4 to 5 months ago, and my triceps have grown so much. And what I would do prior to implementing these is I would start my triceps off with pushdowns, and pushdowns are great, but ever since I started off with an overhead movement, specifically these with the dumbbell, my triceps have started to blow up. And I think one thing with this movement, at least when I try to put other people onto it, it takes them a little bit to adapt to it, as it's an interesting movement. You have to knee the dumbbell up on your delt, put it behind your head, which is kind of scary. But all of them, once they've adapted and learned it, they really enjoyed it. So I do 2 sets here, and I think the main takeaways, right, are that you have a proper setup. You're sitting at that half bench, you're putting the dumbbell on your knee, you're kicking it back to your delt, and then you're making a diamond hand and putting it behind your head, and you're keeping your elbows locked and going to that like 90-degree angle and then going back up. And of course, with every exercise, we're trying to stick to that 4 to 9 rep range, moreover so on the 4 to 7 range. I think that's like the sweet spot, especially for progressive overload. And this will be working your long head of your tricep. So I try to keep a nice variation throughout the week of exercises, so I can make sure that each head is getting a proper amount of work. But the next movement here is a preacher curl, and usually actually my next movement will be a cable curl, and then my second bicep movement will be the preacher curl, and I actually do it isolated, but I ended up changing things up today. I'm a big fan of preacher curls. I really like this movement. I feel like a lot of people can overcomplicate arms in general. They feel like you have to do a certain amount of volume, or you have to do all these sets or all these different exercises, but the reality of it is that if you can program just a few exercises that you can genuinely progress with over time, and you stick to that for a long period of time, you're going to be just fine. So, and the same exact ideology applies for every single muscle group in your body. So pretty much, when you look at training from a fundamental standpoint, you're eating properly, you're sleeping properly, and you're progressive overloading over time. And if you're doing all 3 of those things correctly, you're going to see growth. And if you're not seeing growth, then you have to look at each of those things individually and see where you're going wrong. And one thing when structuring my workouts as well is that I like to structure them in a sense that each muscle group gets an adequate amount of rest in between. So as you'll see, I went from shoulder, tricep to bicep, and then we're right back at shoulder. And this lateral raise, if you have this machine at your gym and you're not using it, you are missing out, because this machine causes my shoulders so much pain. And actually, if you don't have it, it's totally fine. I love dumbbell lateral raise. You could do cable. At the end of the day, a lateral raise is a lateral raise. At the end of the day, a shoulder press is a shoulder press. As long as you're doing something within that realm, you're totally fine. I actually do 2 sets here, but I only document 1. So make sure you do 2 sets. And then right after that, we go into our final tricep movement, which is cable tricep pushdown. Keep it simple, keep it classic. I think I actually remember doing this set, I kind of ego lifted a little bit, and I did more weight than I was a little bit capable of. So ideally, it's not too bad, but you can see my elbows flaring up and driving up, and you want to keep your elbows locked when you're doing these. So you guys can see that I'm utilizing a lot of momentum when I'm pushing down, and you do not want to do that. And I ended up doing 2 sets of tricep pushdowns. I only filmed 1 sadly, but I did do my warm-up sets as well. I just didn't film them. But right after that, I go into a cable curl, and cable curls are one of my favorite bicep movements aside from dumbbell curls. I mean, shit, every freaking workout that I do is my favorite exercise because I only do like 2 to 3 exercises per muscle group. But some key takeaways with this exercise specifically, I mean, with every exercise, right, you want to minimize that excess use of momentum that we saw with my tricep pushdowns, so make sure you're not doing that. And then when setting up for this exercise, I like to grab a straight bar. I prefer that over the curl bar, to be honest. To each their own, you choose what you want, but I'm always going to pick the straight bar, and it just feels the best to me. But pretty much I'll set that up, I'll take a step back. I have a little bit of a lean in my back, as you can notice, and the main focus is that you're going top to bottom all the way, fully contracting your bicep and letting your bicep work, keeping your elbows tucked and stationary, and that's all there is to it to my shoulder and arm day. So let me know what you guys want to see next in the comment section down below. And yeah, today is drop day for BD, so if you use code J, I'd greatly appreciate it. All the support has been going crazy.